Hey there, good morning. It is 10:28 a.m. It is, I believe it's November, let me see what day it is. November 3rd. It's Monday morning. I hope you are all having a wonderful morning. I wanted to start today off, just getting things done like immediately. And this is how I operate, I usually prioritize things that I don't like first. I put that on the top of my list because then it gives me something to look forward to for the rest of the day. So I already know I hate looking for work. I hate it more than anything at this moment. There was a time in the past where I enjoyed looking for work, but because of what was in place, illegally, that created a lot of problems for me, but I'm still someone who has to push through. I wanted to kind of go over some things that I was thinking about today because, I had been talking about this issue for a long time, and I know that the community, and that's a broad term because it's not just Bakersfield. It's, this was a big, big issue that involved a lot of important names and so on and so forth. And this whole thing was devised and operated, orchestrated by Rashawn Gordon, and then of my airheaded of I'm going to say the people that I used to live with growing up. This would be, Tanya, Rashawn, the people I grew up with in the same household. I was forced into a network, and I think what they were trying to do was kind of show off, and all these people were, trying to mock me because of my work ethic. And, like I said, the reason why I care about the quality of my work is because that's all I have to stand on. Okay. All I can say is that, yes, I am a good worker. I'm somebody who has to take care of myself, meaning I don't have anyone else to rely on. And the reason why is because I am a result of an experimental, well, actually, I've been cloned for several times, but my situation being brought into this through the Joseph Mengele operations, and then the church fueling it with misinformation about my bloodline. So this caused a lot of problems, and obviously the family dynamic that I was raised in was very, implosive and encouraged by people around them to, bully me. Rashawn took it too far, and he, it wasn't enough to bully me when I was a child, but he wanted to continue this into my adult life. Okay, so anyway, this network included people that I had already mentioned before. This included like the Murray Family Farms group, uh, and all the employers that I had worked for throughout my life. And, Rashawn was somebody who was very hungry for power. Okay, so like I said, if people cannot control you, then they generally try to control how other people view you so that they can get control. And throughout this entire time, you know, um, all I can say is that this is a serious blemish on the community as a whole. Okay, like I said, not just Bakersfield, but people online and all this other stuff. Okay, unfortunately, you were sucked into serious mind control, layers upon layers of it. So I want to talk a little bit about networks. Networks should be professional, and they should be based on a serious support system. This particular network wanted to bully me continuously, okay, to the point of where they have jeopardized my life and put me in very toxic situations. I do believe that my brother was posing, Rashawn was posing as somebody who was concerned about my welfare to my son, right? And therefore tricking my son into being complacent into um, his plan. Okay, what Rashawn did was highly illegal. Okay, and then also very disrespectful, mainly because he should have never brought my son into something like this. My son is my family. He comes directly out of my body, meaning like he is my biological son. My brother wanted to influence my son to not look favorably upon me. Okay, this is a kind of mind control that Rashawn needed to exert over other people. He was a very sick person, and so by using religion as an excuse, he was able to get people's participation. Very bad. So going back to networks should not be constructed this way, and networks should work within the guidelines of the law. For and a lot of people are, the message I'm getting right now is that people are only supportive of what I'm talking about, my initiatives. But when you think about it, the law is already written for this. Okay, this is why we have these specific laws relating to, marriage laws, or things relating to women being protected in the workplace. Okay, I would be an example of that. Okay, a lot of people, they're very interested in looking at people's lives. They want to make speculation. Sometimes they want to play matchmaker. Sometimes, you become fascinated into a particular person's life, and you wonder about them, and then coworkers start talking about this person, and then pretty soon it can escalate to things like sexual harassment, which result in situations like mine. Okay, many women are struggling just to support themselves, and we don't need this sort of stuff. This is why these laws are in place. Okay, Rashawn trivialized my life. Okay, and made it so, and what's offensive about it, like, I had said, I was adopted. Okay, so right then and there, when that whole thing was revealed, when I came to understand that he was not my brother, this stuff should have like cleared up right away, because Rashawn would only be somebody interested in me for this full sole reason of exploitation. Since he is not my biological brother, and even if he was, okay, I am over the age of 18. He had no right to say anything about me. So networks should be professional. They should be working within a certain guideline of professionalism, meaning like the law. Okay. Sometimes there are networks that arrange jobs for other people. Okay. If your network is truly professional, they would understand that you, number one, you have goals, all right, to continually move yourself up. Okay, not with people strategically trying to put you back down. In this situation, I know that I was very happy. At the time when I was working at Murray Family Farms, I was very happy because I had showed consistency in my work history. Okay, I was very glad to say, okay, I worked this job for over this amount of years. Okay, why? Because that reflects on you. It's basically saying, well, I'm somebody who is able to show up on work. I'm able to get my job done. I'm able to do this right here. So when they ask you why you leave, my answer is always going to be human trafficking. My answer is always going to be human trafficking, because it certainly isn't something I've done. I didn't do anything wrong, okay? But I had continuously had to face with this issue of Rashawn and bringing his influence into the workplace and inciting this sort of problem in other people. I had did a big video on stalking, okay? So it's not like this particular network that I was forced to belong to didn't know. They knew. Okay, they knew. That video that I created was over 4 years old. Okay, so it's been a while since I made that video. Over and over and over again, I had identified Rashawn as a predator. I had identified him as someone I did not want to be associated with, but yet still, people were convinced to follow him. So, networks need to be professional. They need to understand like the goals of each specific member. Like, let's just say, for example, I decided to network. I met a person at the library. Okay. And then I just said, oh, this is what I do for a living. And they said, oh, this is what I do for a living. And then we become like this network, these two supporting each other, right? She would know my goals. I would know her goals. We would serve as references for each other. If we were going to place each other in jobs, they would coincide with our future goals are. Hopefully, you would want to be in a professional network where you're not being set up to be sabotaged. Okay, this particular group, it was 100% sabotage. Okay, and their reasons were based on their doctrines. Okay, all these people came from different religions, so somehow in their weird warped mind, I was deserving of being demoted. I was deserving of not having a job because I wore nice clothes, because I was a woman, because I was whatever, all the way down the line. Okay, women need our financial stability. If you were working as a lawyer, right, and then you end up getting divorced, and then your husband tells everybody, oh, you know what, I remember referring her to this one job before, and because I referred her to a job, I helped build her career. So now I'm going to snatch it all away from her, and now I'm going to leave her in financial destitution. Okay, This is why we have laws. This is why we have employment laws. Okay. So they are different than a business law. Like, for example, I know Alita and maybe Sean may have been owners of Flourishing Fart, right? Okay. So if they wanted to dissolve that company, that would be specific under that under business law, the law that governs these sort of businesses. Employment is not the same. Okay, it is not the same. Okay, so this is where people get, and then I know where this mentality comes from. It comes from certain people who want to adhere to some sort of cult type view. Okay, that is not how employment works. It's run based on employment law. Okay, and specifically state and mostly state and federal. Okay, so networks can be formulated through friendship groups. They can be, formulated through churches and things like this. Okay, but the point is like you want to make sure that you're not in a network that is manipulative, that wants to manipulate certain aspects of your life. Okay, if they want to assign you a job, they need to do that for professional reasons only. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that I am very grateful that CB has been vindicated and now respected in churches. See, now one of the reasons why I've always been a worker. Okay, and this is one of the things that people know me for in my past life and other lives, most likely. Okay, like I said, I've always been a person who showed up at my job. I've always taken my job seriously. I have been chased. I noticed that I have been in a CB Braganza. I would settle down in one state, and then this issue would happen, and then I'd move to another. I was willing to go anywhere, okay, just to have a settled life. And I should have been entitled to a settled life. You know why? Because CB Braganza came to the United States knowing that the United States had freedom of religion, but yet people still wanted to flip the narrative and force him into sort of certain agreements, specifically marriage. Okay, now CB Braganza understood that their view, well, I'm just now understanding what their definition of marriage is as Maria Gordon. Okay, like I said, here in the state of California, marriage is a consensual agreement. Now, what these people believe is that it seems as though it's more of a business arrangement. So basically, they wanted to suck him dry and leave him not. It's like he would be like the front man of their puppetry, right? And then he would get basically breadcrumbed why these people get to sit on everything. Of course, he doesn't want to get that kind of marriage. Okay, so and then of course I live here in California. I understand that marriage has to be consensual. Okay, so sometimes we have people who are interested in our business skills and they think, okay, well, this is a business marriage because this person helps elevate you. No, what you have is actually a business arrangement. That's what you have, not a marriage. Okay, and so I really get the feeling that some of these people get confused as to what is the difference. There is a difference between now, but anyway, networks should understand those guidelines. And hopefully, right now my main goal is to get back to work. Okay. But in the future, because I do have Gordon's occupational engineering, I plan on posting information specifically on these sort of things, talking about, more specific guidelines on the kind of ideal networks you want to formulate. Also, I want to talk more about laws, the reason why we have laws. Well, I already talked about the reason why we have laws. According to my past life readings, I know that I have written scriptures, right? The scriptures that 3 books of the Bible, and it seems as though I have been an implementer of laws throughout my entire life. I also did some reading that when it comes to Boston, I lived in Boston. I made some sort of significant changes in Boston. The intuitive messages I'm getting right now is that people look at me as somebody who is surrounded by positive things. You know what I mean? And so these particular laws, and some of these laws I didn't create, but I'm just saying, like for example, California, these laws are here because they are well thought out, and they are usually created and implemented, sorry, because these issues have already happened and occurred to somebody else. They've already happened. So based on these situations, then they're like, okay, the smart thing to do is to have some sort of protection for these sort of things that may happen in the future. So yes, the laws should be abided by. Okay, and a lot of people are used to being crooked. They're used to not acknowledging laws or even aware that they should be. So, like for example, in this situation, when we had Rashawn, telling people to do stuff, him thinking, oh well, I'm her adoptive brother. This should be enough authorization. People thinking, oh, this is a family. Now, like I said, you know, I had already given these people proof what they were doing was wrong. Okay, so there is no excuse. Okay, but still, if we were basing it just off of what these people should have learned in, like, for example, let's just say, for example, some of these women may have had a 4-year degree in business administration. Okay, they failed to acknowledge this. They failed to show that they really had the skills necessary to do their job. Okay. And if they say, well, we didn't learn about that, well, then we need to talk about what needs to be put in these textbooks, because this is law. Okay. This is the law, and it's easily referenced. This is one of the reasons why I added this information into the human targets video. Okay. I listed the penal codes and stuff like that. And some people would like to say, oh, well, are you somebody who is trying to practice law? No, I am not. But the reason why these things were posted on, like, billboards, they're posted in lead gazettes, they're posted in libraries, they're easily accessible, is because they're there for reference material. They are not there. I am not practicing law. I am referencing. Something is coming up, so I'm referencing it and I'm showing it to you. So this should cut down the argument. Okay. The United States is not operated based on your religious views. Okay. Religion is used to orchestrate, I guess, people's specific lifestyles. Okay, so sometimes people, religious people, they believe in something very strongly, so they want to approach, leaders within a community so that everybody lives under this. Okay, so they need to decide whether or not, is this something that is truly going to benefit some people? It may oppress other people. So if they choose to live this specific way, these issues should be brought up to the clergy within their church. Okay, let's just say, for example, there's certain guidelines that maybe certain religions may adhere to regarding marriage. Okay, like we have the issue where some men feel as though women should be, have a certain role or whatever. This is the church, the religion that they chose to live by. This is how they live. Okay, and this is what they agreed to. Okay, and this is like this little community within their churches that they choose to live by. Okay, so all of those issues should be going to the clergy of their church. All of their concerns should be addressed to their clergy. This is their little flock. This is their little group. This is their little philosophy and their way that they live, and this is how they live. And this is their choice, right? But to inflict that on everybody else, this is the reason why we have freedom of religion. So people make these choices to stay within their religious groups. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that the Bible was written by Masonic people. Okay, of course. So it is. I mean, like, some of the things have changed. Things have changed. Okay, I look at the Bible from a specific perspective. Like, I can see that certain, I guess, behavior traits, things that are most likely going to happen to certain, within certain social dynamics. Okay, it is very likely that if a person has like the kind of strengths, the sort of intelligence that someone like I have, I'm going to deal with problems. I'm going to deal with problems. Okay, just like I did back in the past. Okay, same sort of situation. Ooh, something supernatural is going on right now. Something supernatural is going on right now. Okay, so anyway, laws. Okay, laws are to be created and hopefully implemented. And I can tell that laws are not implemented well within this community, and nor do I believe that they are even acknowledged or even understood, or even some people are even not even aware of them. I don't believe that the people within this force network that I belong to were truly educated, and they should have been more open to following the law. Okay, and with the law that they were following, I do believe it was made up on the fly. Okay, and so this is what puts me apart from these other people, and the reason why people are sitting here thinking like, well, Maria didn't, nothing happened to Maria, nothing happened. Exactly. Okay, the reason why is because I follow the law. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that people believe that my stuff is powerful. Okay, it is. It is. Why? Because and really, when I think about it, this is how it's always been. This has been the law. We've had people who deviated from the law, and this is why I'm suffering right now. Okay. So, yeah, and so some of these positions that people work within the community as well as, just their profession in general. Okay. So, like, we have people who work in business administration, we have managers, we have business owners, and this sort of stuff. Okay. And now a lot of people's names are associated with something bad because they followed Rashawn. Okay, this is what I was telling people. Like, I talked about people complaining, reporting employers on, Glassdoor. Because I'll tell you what, people like me who've been victims of MK Ultra, which there's a lot. Okay, people who have been abandoned by their family members or didn't have family at all, which there's a lot. Okay, we are relying on employers who are going to be truly show that they have integrity, meaning that they are not going to participate in things like human trafficking. This is what human trafficking is. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. So yeah, so the message I'm getting right now is that my reputation is clean. Okay, and I understand there's times where people get together with their networks, and sometimes people might be friends. They may be friends for many years, neighbors, distant family members, or whatever. Okay, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people say friendship and family don't mix. Okay, if you can't be ethical and treat people exactly the same across the board, when it comes to business, then we have a problem. And see, my brother, or Sean, okay, he is not my brother, but people thinking that family members should make these sort of decisions, forcing people into forced marriages and stuff like this kind of stuff needs to seriously be examined. And these what these people were doing were making exceptions. And see, this is why I'm telling you. Okay, when I was sitting here posting and saying all of these stuff, this was a cult. Okay, this was a cult, and I do believe that they were trying to attempt to murder me. And this is what Rashawn was doing. He really thought that because I was the savior, he was taking this literally. Okay, and there are people who Rashawn had convinced a lot of people that this was ideal. I will tell you, I am more uh, uh, of use alive than I am dead. Okay, so Rashawn was seriously delusional. Okay, in a court, well, if the courts, okay, this is what I'm saying, the legal system, okay, our entire operation here in the United States needs a serious overhaul. There's a lot of people who need to be removed from their positions, and there's people who need to be brought in. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that my views are very powerful. Okay, we still have vigilantes. We still have people who want to pick and choose. We have this all in, like, in customer service positions. We have them in the legal system. Okay, we need our legal system working well. Okay, we need the legal system to be top notch. Okay, and like I said, if people cannot cooperate, okay, then there may be ways through, like, and see, I'm not in favor of AI and stuff like that. Not really. I mean, I have been just recently acquainted with AI in the last half a year or so. Okay, like, I talked about me using Grammarly, right? To improve my spell check and stuff like that. But there could be possibly a way to create some sort of just legal system with AI. There could possibly be something like that. Okay, what I'm saying is that our legal system is trash. Okay, the rules, the laws, I would say, are great, but we have a lot of crooked people, and it's these crooked people that I want out of their positions. Okay, because they don't deserve them. Many of these people serve as what do you call it? Carriers or supporters of human trafficking. Okay. This is one of the reasons why I'm expressing my concern. And I also think that, places like law enforcement are also involved in human trafficking. Why do they believe that they're doing righteous? Do I think that they may have convinced themselves that they're doing right things? Yes. Why? Because a lot of these people are filled with delusions relating to cult type activity. Okay, not, as I said, not church activity. And I think it's important. Like, I addressed the Republican Party before about what we need to make a distinction between what's what. Okay, And some people may be doing these sort of things illegally, okay? But, we have groups, vigilante groups and whatever, and it's these kind of groups that I'm talking about. Like I said, I don't have an issue with people living their lives or whatever, but this sort of stuff must stop, okay? The other message I'm getting is that there are females who do actively support my view on this issue, and I'm very grateful for that, okay? We get put in these situations, and we need to live, and it's not about rebellion, it's about saving ourselves. Okay, so other things I want to talk about is confidentiality. I will be doing more videos. Like I said, I need to look at work, okay, and until I find a job, I'm not really going to be producing any work, okay, because I need to get things done, okay. But the things I need to cover are things like confidentiality. In this case, this showed no confidentiality. You know what I mean? Every applicant deserves to be treated with respect and privacy. Okay, and a lot of people, they just do not have it in them to be able to keep their secrets or to uphold that sort of confidentiality. They're blabbermouths, they always want to talk, okay? And I'm somebody who understands the importance of confidentiality. Could you imagine working for an employer, right? And your employer creates community gossip and harassment within in your neighborhood because they can't uphold your confidentiality. They spill the beans, they tell people your business, and it's like, well, that's not a reputable company to work for. It's just not, okay. These Then you have a company that is responsible for basically ruining your life, okay. And this is the reason why I find it difficult for me to respect the people that I worked with. So yes, confidentiality should be a requirement when it comes to certain positions. You know what I mean? I remember, I think I mentioned before, when I worked for a company. Oh, my sister actually worked for, well, Lisa actually worked for this company, Music Plus, many years ago. It was considered, termination worthy if you were to discuss what a customer bought, okay, because they are supposed to have their privacy. Okay. And yes, I mean, because you can ruin somebody's reputation. Just for example, okay, now porn, I am not a porn person, okay? I am not. Okay. But legally, people have the right to watch it. Okay. And when you think about it, even though I'm not into pornography, it does serve a certain need for certain people. For example, some people, they are not able to get sexual gratification. So the only thing, they're not really appealing to women, whatever the issue is, the only thing that they can actually do is look at porn. So in some ways, it is a way of satisfying somebody who is incapable of doing this. And it could also help some people who may have certain fetishes, but then it could also excel them into becoming something worse. Okay. Whatever the case is, however you look at it, it is legal for them to rent pornography. Okay. Now, uh, let's just say, for example, somebody came in, one of his neighbors came in after he went to the video store, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, he just checked out blah 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 blah." Okay, that information could ruin his reputation. Okay, it could ruin his reputation, and regardless of how you feel about pornography, he still has a right to watch pornography. Okay, and therefore it should not be disclosed, because now you're giving people fuel to bully this person, look upon this person as a certain way. And by the way, I am not somebody who's saying I'm for or against pornography. It just is. Now, there are certain forms of pornography that are illegal, plain and simple, such as child pornography. Okay, that's a completely different story. That's illegal, and that person should be arrested. Okay, there's a difference between the two. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. It's the fact that I understand certain things may be shocking to you, or you may not understand it. Okay, if you don't believe in this person doing what they're supposed to do, that's one thing. Okay, but he still has a right to do it. You do what I'm saying? And you, by me, for example, if I was working in that position where somebody rented like a pornography thing for me, well, I understand that that's what he's doing. He's even though I don't like it, even though I don't like it, he still has the right to do it. Okay, and for me to sit here and gossip about what he does in his personal life that he has the right to do, I'm violating. It's violation. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that people like my video, human targets. Okay, there's a lot of people who just do not know how to do their job. As a matter of fact, they create and they cause and contribute more hatred in society than anything, just by them sitting in these seats. So my thing is like, we need to examine who belongs and who doesn't, and get rid of these people. Okay, maybe they're good at something else. Maybe they're not people who should be around personal information. Maybe they're not, that's just not their thing. Maybe they would be better filing paperwork, or they'd be better, doing something else. But if they're somebody who is at high risk, they just cannot keep their mouth shut. They can't do their job because confidentiality is just beyond them. Then they don't need to work in confidentiality type positions. Okay. The other message I'm getting right now, I want to talk about is frustrating applicants. Okay, now I would say that I looked at Indeed.com today, and I was able to apply to a few jobs. Okay, and I would say that it was decent. Okay, sometimes I know some of the frustrations of job seekers would be things like, uh, okay, for example, I've worked in, let me pick this up. I've worked in accounting for over 27 years, okay? And so you have this on your resume, and you have it in the details of your Indeed.com, but yet they want to come back and give you a test. Now, I have not been asked to take a test from any of these places that I applied today, but this is just one of them. If you worked for 27 years in a job working accounting, it's frustrating when people give you a test, okay? I know this is something that they did to me when I was applying for jobs in the past. This is a part of their harassment campaign. Do I think it was purposely done? Yes, I do. Okay. It was done to undermine me. As a matter of fact, every job that I had after leaving Murray Family Farms was going down below, not going where I was supposed to go. Also, so I would say that has improved. But some of the questions, like I applied to a job today and it was asking me questions, like for example, and this is not a necessarily a bad thing, but like when it comes to like my office skills and stuff like that, I've been using things like a Microsoft Word since like the beginning, like since 1997. Okay. Shortly after these things actually became like commonplace. So no, I am not certified in things like, I'm not certified in Microsoft Word or anything. And that's another thing that relates to my experience. If you can see on my resume that I've been working for 20 something 7 years, oh, or sorry, whatever, working for 27 years, and most of the jobs that I list have, Excel and all these other things. Why would you ask for me to be certified? Okay, this is what I'm saying. Okay, I think certification sometimes could be overrated. Okay, but when it comes to like things like QuickBooks, I've been using QuickBooks since pretty much ever. I've been using Microsoft type stuff since ever. Now, so there are sometimes they'll throw a wrench at you, like some of these software programs where like that unify the I guess group activity, team type activity, like Slack, for example. Some of these things are not necessary until you actually get to the job. And the reason why I say this is because one company might use Slack, another company might use another communication device or whatever to communicate with. They vary, okay, and they are usually based on small functions that could be used. I mean, learned within like a day. Like how do you initiate a meeting? How do you do these sort of things? All of those to me, I think some of this stuff in the workplaces, the request that they make is just a little bit over the top. But no, I have never gained. Now I was thinking about becoming QuickBooks certified, a few years ago. But see, my career got redirected. Okay, it got redirected. What did my son was it? Okay, good. Okay, okay. So my career got redirected, but no, and I would say, when I first started working in accounting, there was a lot of more education tools in the workplace. Okay, Excel had just kind of started being introduced, and I remember like we actually had Excel lessons in the company I worked for, and then I just kind of used it from there. You know what I mean? Anyway, no, I don't. Okay, but I've used QuickBooks for over 20 something years. I've used Microsoft products for over whatever years. So yeah, maybe in the future I will be, but I don't see right now. Okay, so with frustrating applicants, it's like when you see or an applicant who's been working for over 20 something years, we find it insulting, and it also slows us down when we get questions really or get tests or skill tests, especially when you can see that you worked these jobs and then you also have access to these references that they ask you for. Okay, so like you could call the lady I used to work for, Jackie. You could say, "Hey, Jackie, she always turned in her financials. I would always turn my financials in on time. I always was ready, and all of that required me to use a particular software program. It's like they all know that, okay? So therefore, why would you sit here and like it's repetitious, okay? And then it's also frustrating and almost because of the human trafficking issue, it kind of comes off as harassment, because I dealt with so much nonsense before. So job references and networks and all of this sort of stuff, they should work ethically, because sometimes, like in my case, you already know what happened with me, okay? And yes, I'm right to be upset because that is the law. That's how it's supposed to be done. I see, and I know people thought that I was like over the top when I first started complaining about this because they kept thinking, well, if this is family, these are their friends and all this stuff. Like they really thought that they were entitled to slow somebody down, deviate them from their career, all because of a family member. No, they are not. That is actually one of the things that classifies a perpetrator in human trafficking. Oftentimes, an adult person is being slaved out, bullied out by a family member. Okay. So anyway, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that so many people agree with my childhood happiness issue. That's nice to know. What else? Something about they do understand that I am an angelic being and that yes, I do. I have my special skills. You know what I mean? And I use them wisely. Okay. I have the right to protect myself, especially when you deal with irate people who constantly put the cycle in bullying. This whole issue, created a cycle of bullying that I didn't deserve. So the other thing I want to say is, okay, something. Oh, okay. See, the message I'm getting is that people think that I should stay weird. That's one of the things. Some people think that I'm weird. Okay, and yeah, I guess I am. I am weird, but I was made to be weird. This is how the divine created me. Meaning, like I'm able to think outside the box. This is, I'm able to think outside the box. I'm able to function in a different way. I'm able to, process information quicker. You know what I mean? I'm proud of who I am. Okay. And I know that people have throughout the years bullied me for this, but this is one of my greatest assets. Okay. So anyway, I want to wrap this video up. I feel as though I've looked for work enough today. I do not want to continually have to drag this on. I want to get back to work as soon as possible. I'm tired of dealing with this issue. I'd like it to blow away. I'm tired of being inconvenienced for this. I want things to get better. You know what I mean? I'm very unhappy that this lasted as long as it did. Okay, so I'm wrapping this video up, and I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye bye.